She helped him turn the page, their story from day.
Ever After is my new single, and in it I tell the story of two lovers deciding whether to get back together, as being like writing a sequel to their story.
In the beginning there was one chap trying to write a chapter one. When she came along,
Decided to dip my toe in the water of graphic novels for vlog book reviews. A bit like a lot of my work, they're kind of media, because you have the visual elements and the storytelling. Enjoy.
Now it seems as the spines are bending, there's no happy ending.
So Marvel 1602 is it's a really interesting graphic novel because it's a kind of collab between a traditional, commercial fictional universe and a visionary creative, namely in this case Neil Gaiman. So let's take a look at the front. So it's written by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Andy Kubert and painted by Richard Isanove, but what you should know is that Neil Gaiman knows this world very well. So if you have a look at the back, you get a lot of info in this version from the guys who wrote it. So, Neil, he talks about, there was this afterword here where he talks about how he used to read comics in 1967, and he basically loves it. And then they also include like a version of Neil's script, and you can kind of see where it all came from, but Neil really thought it out all well. So anyone who hasn't read any of his work, like, you may have seen the film Stardust, brilliant novel, and he has done some graphic novel stuff. He did a DC thing called Sandman, which I haven't actually looked into, but apparently it's kind of like Watchmen, and that's kind of like dystopian. So this is quite a fun page because it's like one that they included in part 5, so they serialized it in 8 parts. So you get to see all the characters. Basically, he's been super creative at like adapting all of the main characters to like 1602, which is basically the handover of the reign of Queen Elizabeth and King James depicted here. And you basically have a lot of the other Marvel characters like Peter Parker here. I believe that's like ScarJo's Black Widow character. Matt Murdock is like Daredevil. Like Professor Xavier is now like Javier. So it's kind of like fun stuff like that where he's like a Spanish guy. It's basically a lot of really fun Easter eggs of like creative adaptations to kind of historical details. So I'll give you a glimpse into the first part just so you get an idea. So although it's called 1602, it does actually start in 1602, so it's right on the edge of Queen Elizabeth's reign. So before she handed over, she was one of the early Protestant monarchs in England, and she handed over to King James, who really did go hard on the Catholics and obviously, piss a lot of them off enough to try and blow them up in the House of Parliament. #Guy Fawkes. But basically each part, you get 8 parts, each one's got a really nice some sort of etching based painting, and then you have the main comic. Like, I'm not a comic guy, but like it's like graphic novels, I'd say, more my thing, but this is like in the style of a Marvel comic, but I just feel like the content really elevates it to kind of graphic novel status. But some of you might be put off by kind of like the Marvel comic like look of this, but I don't mind it. I mean, there's some good like conventions, like when they bold out some of the words for emphasis, and like you can always follow like the trajectory of conversations like pretty naturally. Honestly, I don't think I'm gonna start reading comics, but this seems like a good entry point if you did want to start, just because the content is so clever. So yeah, it's like they move between a lot of scenes. It's quite complex how many there are, but like visually you see different colors. Like it's like, you know, it's a new scene because you've got like a very red vibe here. And yeah, here we go. We got to part 2. So I would thoroughly recommend this. So yeah, Cerulean's gonna give this a 4 out of 5. Remember, read more books and write a second book with your lover if you can. Bye.
Change those tears to life.